welcome and to another Utility Administration Committee. We'll get started by just getting the confirmation of posting and roll call. So Josh, everything was posted?
Correct.
And then everybody's here, and Howard is on the phone today. So we have a full quorum, and I guess we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I guess we'll go straight to the comment. So if there's anybody that has a comment, I don't see anybody in the audience. Josh, was there anybody that phoned in or emailed anything?
I did not receive anything.
Okay, thank you. So we'll wait on the phone quickly. So the phone number, if anybody wants to call in, is 702-589-9629, as you can see on the screen. Give that just a minute or so in case somebody catches up, and then we'll continue on. Okay, one more time, the phone number is 702-589-9629. Okay, hearing no comments, and there will be another comment period at the end if anybody did miss the chance here. And so we'll continue on with this. A couple things. The first thing is that there's another meeting at 5 o'clock today. I guess it's the residential budget meeting tonight. So we only have till 4 o'clock today. So if, and I think this agenda, we probably shouldn't be too bad, but, so we only have till 4, but if you can if you help me to keep on track, then we can all just be mindful of not getting too carried away on any one subject. I think today's budget's agenda's the budget probably is the most one we need to really work on, or make sure we have everything squared away on. So, Joe, was there anything you needed to rearrange the agenda for?
Nope. We can go to agenda item number 1.
Okay. So, for possible action, approval of the January 8th, 2025 Utility Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Is there any comments from any of the committee members?
None here.
No.
Howard, did you have any concerns?
No, I have not. None.
Okay, I don't have any concerns, so does anybody want to do a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept.
Any second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Sorry about that, Howard. Passes unanimously. Okay, so we will go to agenda item number 2 for possible action, discussion of the fiscal year 26 utility operating budget.
Hello, Angela Mananin, Budget Manager. And we're going to go over the tentative utilities operating budget for fiscal year 26. So high level, just what is a budget? So a budget is a fiscal plan setting out anticipated revenue and expenditures for accomplishing a variety of services over a given period of time. A budget is not cash. In order for money to be spent, it has to be included in the budget. An operating budget is for current expenditures, and a capital budget is for a financial plan for long-term expenditures such as capital improvements and facilities. So the utility budget process is the same as the cities, where we begin with the preparation, where we examine expense estimates and consider the available revenues. We do this we take into the rate study when we do this. So we ensure that the cash flow we have in the rate study is adequate for anything we're proposing in the budget. It then is approved by council and submitted to the Nevada State of Nevada Department of Taxation. It's then implemented, and then throughout the year, it's evaluated and audited to ensure that the budget didn't go over and there was enough funding for all the services needed.
One,
Yep.
for the audience that might be out there, can you clarify when the budget starts and when it ends?
Officially, the city is on a fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th.
Okay.
So our budget has to be sent to the state by June 1st. So,
So it starts this July?
yes.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay. So for fiscal year '26, the revenues by the funds the utility revenues total $30.9 million. This is $16.7 million in the electric fund, $10 million in the water fund, and this has gone down by $1.4 million because there's no ARPA funding in fiscal year '26 as there was in fiscal year '25. The wastewater fund is $2.3 million. And again, this one also went down $1.7 million, and this has to do with the ARPA funding not existing in fiscal year '26. The landfill fund is $1.5 million. In this slide, it's still $3.9 million is the total revenue, but just breaking down what that revenue is. The majority of it is all charge for services. So electric charge for services is $16.6 million. The water charge for services is $9.1 million. Sewer charge for services is $2.2 million. The refuse charge is $1.1 million. There's an infrastructure sales tax, which is $1.1 million. This tax can only be used in the water and wastewater fund, and it can only be used for debt or for capital improvements. And we're currently using it to pay off the water debt. The landfill receipts is for commercial users that go to the landfill and do a drop-off, and they pay a fee, which is $300,000. Construction fee is $80,000. This is for landfill for future capital improvement projects. The electric hookup fees is $80,000. This is a one-time fee when you get your electricity turned on. Same with water fees. Hookup fees is $55,000. A landfill closure fee is $50,000, and this is a fee that's charged that will pay for the closure of the landfill when it's officially closed down in 100 years or whenever that is. And then the sewer hookup fees is $15,000. So almost all of those are charged for services. There's no grants currently in utilities, so they're definitely paying their own way. So just like I said, so all the revenue is coming from charge for services, except for that one sales tax of the $1.1 million that can only be used in water and wastewater. And there is no ARPA funding in '26.
Could I ask a question on?
Yeah.
On the 50,000 per year that is that's for closure. That's a fund, isn't it, that is accruing, that we must have a balance that someday we're assuming it will cost. Do we know what that balance is at this point?
I should have that at the top of my head. I do not. I can get that for you, but it is. It's in its own separate account. It's collecting its own interest. It's totally set aside, and for the life of me, I'm drawing a blank of what that is.
Okay.
But so on that same note, then the construction, I think that's been, at one point, the construction I thought was still for farther out. So now you clarified that the construction part can be used for that landfill. Have we used anything out of that? But so if we have anything going on in the future, we can pull from that.
Yes.
Okay.
It is a source for the landfill.
Right, of course.
Maybe you can clarify again for the audience that might be out there, the ARPA fund, what that stands for and why it's finished real quickly.
Yep. Nope. It's the American Rescue Plan funding. It was given to all the different all different governments. Boulder City got a large chunk, 21 million, and 10 million of that was given to utilities for infrastructure projects. So it had to be allocated by December 31st of 2024, and it has to be spent by December 31st of 2026. So that's why there's no more, because it had to be allocated by last December.
And we still spent money on ARPA, on things, and then we're kind of paying back now. I'm trying to remember exactly how, or is it just all spent now and?
Very close. So it was given all up front. We have projects allocated to it. There's a few water and wastewater projects that are finalizing, such as Copper Services, that still has money that'll be spent throughout this year. So
So we
It won't-
shifted money around so we could spend it in time, and now we
Yes.
have other projects that we kind of did ahead of time, and now we're still really kind of have some money in a way, but we don't. Yeah,
The roundabout way, the funding for the projects that that got moved ahead, their funding is funding the projects that couldn't move fast enough to be spent with ARPA funding, if that makes sense.
But to continue on that, though, to make sure that his comment is correct, because the way I understand it is that the money that hasn't been spent, once it's spent, then would go back into the funds, available funds for the, so theoretically, there could be some money available this year because it's the money that's still available for the projects that are on, it's the ongoing capital. So it's not something we would assume for the revenue. This is where the budget gets to be, and I could do it at the end of your, at the end of the, if you want, but it's confusing because you have the budget that's concerned with this year, and then when you revise the budget, or like you're saying, you reevaluate it, then you take the capital, move the capital into the budget, and at that point, then you have money that's available for that, if I'm assuming right, and ARPA is one of them, because we've got this rollover for the
Sort
copper,
of.
for instance, and you have money still available for that.
So let's do high-level budget. Everything that's being presented in the budget today to be spent in fiscal year '26, so all the new CIP, all the operating for '26 will not be funded by ARPA. There are current projects happening right now that will be basically reimbursed by ARPA funding. But they're all happening, they're all exist in '25, so it's none of the new expenses in '26. Hopefully that.
26, we're done with ARPA. They're not giving us
Yep.
any money.
Nope.
But we spent it early, and then we're going to use that money we had to, yeah, I understand it. I just want to make sure the audience understands it.
Hopefully it makes sense. Okay. Oops, did I go? Okay. So this pie chart, I know it looks very busy. It's utilities expenditures by type. It's the total expenditures for fiscal year '26, and it's $41.6 million. Of this, some of it, it's not all operating. There is $4.3 million in there that is depreciation, and also $2.1 million that is debt, and also $7.1 million that's capital projects. So, looking at this chart, the largest expense that the city has is purchasing power or not the city, the utilities, I'm sorry, purchasing power at 22%, which is $8.9 million. And then purchasing water is $4.7 million, which is 11%. And then our other large expense inside the utilities is capital at 17%. This slide is very busy, and since it is mostly operating that we're supposed to be talking about today, I'm going to skip ahead to this slide that just takes the capital out. It's the very next slide, just to break it down easier what the operating budget looks like for fiscal year '26. So the utilities expenditures by type is the next slide, and total expenses are $27.9 million. Of those, purchase power, again, is the largest one at $8.9 million. And then there's purchase water at 17%, which is $4.7 million. Salaries is 24% at $6.7 million. Benefits for all the utilities is $1.4 million. Services is $1.7 million. Repairs and maintenance is $2 million. Other services are $1.8 million, and supplies are $352,000, for a total of an operating budget for next year of $27.9 million. Yeah.
Just for our audience, again, to clarify, we don't normally spend that $7 million in the past for a capital improvement fund. We're always, it seems like, if I recall correctly, we never seem to spend the budgeted money that we have in the past. Is that pretty much an accurate statement?
It's
Or
very
do we
diff-
plan on spending that $7 million?
So that $7 million is projects that are starting, and we are uncertain if it would complete by June 30th of next year, just to be prepared. And so hopefully, if they are, we have the funding available to start those projects. So it's basically funding those projects to that point, even though there's a possibility, because these are long-term projects, the funding might roll over. But by putting it here in this budget, we're setting it aside. This money is now available for that
But
project.
historically, we don't always spend that in the last couple, 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
like, we didn't spend a lot of it, correct?
There is about $20 million in current CIP projects, and there was not $20 million that started in fiscal year '25. So projects do take time to complete. There's
But,
always delays.
but we anticipate spending this 7 million, or we probably won't, or just depends on the situation.
It just depends on the situation.
Okay.
It's in the plan, so the funding's there, so that project can move forward, hopefully. But, I mean, there's always hiccups.
Okay, thank you.
So there is the 4 utilities, and there is another group with utilities called the Admin Fund, which is supplies support to all 4 utilities equally. The Admin Fund does not take in any revenue. In fiscal year '26, the estimated cost of the Admin Fund is $5.1 million, and it's spread out between the 4 utilities. This includes an interfund expense of $1.5 million to the general fund. It also is what's going to support our next rate study coming up next year.
Now, is that, so if I'm looking at it, I remember right, it was 4.4, I thought? Or was it-
7.
It was 4.7, so it's gone up $400,000 in just, again, in 1 year.
Yep.
That's quite an increase just for a small portion.
The increase to the general fund is $37,500 because it increased 2.5%, which is what's being charged to all the enterprise funds. There's also all the salary increase. Now that's $400,000. There is the rate study, which is $150,000, and just costs of software and other items that just have increased in price.
Okay, well, this is, I think, for me anyway, would be helpful on some of when the expenses do go up, just if you could sort of explain it. They are what they are in most cases, but it's helpful when you, and then hopefully now, will this be broken out in the final budget?
When we have our final executive summary, it will be broken.
Okay,
out.
just making sure it's not gonna be stay, because, you know, you can't see, it's in the salaries and other, I'm assuming, but there's no way for us to understand what that is and what each utility is paying for that. So that was part of the thing with the, with our
The line for each,
package.
what each utility is paying will be broken out.
Okay, so if it's like, we're using the same executive format that we have, that's currently on the website right now for fiscal year '25, then that'd be helpful, because at least it's broken out, and also the power. So thank you for breaking that out, because that was confusing in the package, the numbers, the way they were shown. And so by breaking it out as this project, I appreciate that, because it just shows more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. So electric expenses for fiscal year '26 are estimated to be $24.4 million. Of that, other purchase services, the 8.9 of that is the energy purchase, so a large portion of that is purchasing power. Capital is $8.2 million. Of that, $5.6 million of that is capital projects, and $2.4 million is depreciation. Salaries is $3.8. Repairs and maintenance is $1 million. Benefits is $900,000. Purchase professional services is $250,000. Supplies is $80,000. And rentals is $80,000, with purchase property services at $4,000. So this slide right here is just showing operating. It's taking out that capital. So operating revenues and expenses, if you're comparing, the left graph is 25, the right graph is 26, and blue is revenue, orange is expenses. So our revenue really is not increasing from fiscal year 25 to 26. We're not expecting anyone to purchase large amounts of power or any large changes. And our increase in expenses has to do with the cost of energy going up, which is still less than it was 2 years ago. So last year, our cost of energy went down dramatically, even compared to what the rate study thought. And so that large increase you see right there is just the increased cost of energy. This graph right here is hopefully showing, this is the electric operating expenses, showing all the different categories and how they're barely moving up. So if you look at salaries, they're moving from 3.6 million to 3.8. So just increases over the years, over the year. And again, the only significant increase is the one in purchasing power of going 6.7 million to the 8.9 million. if anyone has any questions, but all the increases this year are really minimal. There's been no requests for anything large or significant.
Now, the salaries, is that including the admin, or is that just the electrical that you're comparing?
That includes electrical, it includes overtime, and it includes the portion of the admin fund that electrical pays for salaries.
Okay, so you've included the admin from last year, because I think that was the first time
Uh,
we had
uh,
the salaries that were like that.
Yep,
So if
we're
you're comparing
trying
the
to,
two, so yeah, so how much was the increase to salaries? Was that 3 or 5% that was?
we're still in labor negotiations, but for electrical, they are the only ones decided it was 3%.
Okay.
So the only change really in the electric fund is the change in the cost of power. So our water fund expenses for fiscal year '26 are about $12.9 million. Other purchase services are 5.3, and of that $5.3 million, 4.7 is the purchasing of water. Capital is 4.2 million, and 750,000 of that is actual capital projects. 2.2 is our debt. 1.3 is depreciation. Salaries is $2 million. Repairs and maintenance is $600,000. Benefits is $376,000, and supplies is $113,000. And this is another chart just showing the comparison from fiscal year '25 to '26. The revenue is decreasing, and that has mainly to do with the ARPA funding not existing in fiscal year '26. And also, we're purchasing less water, so we're taking in less water revenue. So our change in expenses, how it reduces to is also we expected to pay more for water in fiscal year '25 than fiscal year '26.
The one comment on the revenue was, I believe, and I understand that the rate's an ongoing aspect, but the ARPA was, I believe, included to the revised, or whatever you call budget. So the 35, or the amount for water, so it was 35 overall utilities that was thinking about in the project, in the packet. So the amount for water actually was less in last year's budget. So there again, that gets a little bit hard to compare when you're looking at the overall executive summary budget. It's still on the website compared to what was the ARPA, because the ARPA I don't believe was included in that final amount. So you actually had less revenues overall, and then you included some of the ARPA that you moved around. So it's a little hard to compare apples and apples sometimes when you're looking at, here's what was presented in last year's budget, and here's what we're presenting now.
Yeah, this is the final fiscal year '25 budget, so it's definitely not the original budget that was. So it would
No,
have.
this
it
was
would-
the final, the 35, the water does not match what was on the final budget for last year, and that was on the website right now when you look at the executive summary.
There's been changes throughout the year, so it went to council to move around some of the ARPA funding and moving it from wastewater to water. So that could have been some of the
Okay.
changes. So this slide is just showing the changes in water operating expenses for fiscal year '26. And again, very minimal changes. They're very slight increases. The only change is the change in our water, where it drops from 5.5 to 4.7. And that's really the only big change in the water fund is the decrease in expected water purchase from last year's 800,000. So wastewater expenses are $2.9 million. Of that is capital of $1.2 million, and of that, 604,000 is actual capital projects. 650 is depreciation. Salaries is 700,000. Repairs and maintenance is 385,000, and benefits are 187,000. Other purchase services are 176,000, and supplies are 159,000. And this is very similar to the water chart. The revenues decreased because of ARPA, the 1.7 where ARPA is not in fiscal year '26. Our expenses only increased from 1.5 million to 1.6 million. And as you can see, our operating revenue is still covering our operating expenses. And here's our wastewater expenses. So again, very, very minimal increases. The one you can see in supplies where it jumps up a tiny bit is an additional 35,000 for odor control chemicals, and the only reason it looks so like such a large increase is just because it's a smaller budget. The landfill expenses are expected to be 1.57 million. Of that, 1.2 million is our purchase property services, so what we pay to Boulder Disposal. Our professional services is 115,000, and this is for different studies or permits. Salaries is 101,000, so this is the landfill's portion of paying for the admin and the support they get. And other purchase services are 58,000, and capital is $20,000, but that is 100% depreciation as there's no new projects currently at the landfill. And this chart looks like there's drastic increases in revenue and expenses, but the chart is only at $30,000 intervals. So the change from expenses is 30,000, or is 30,000. The change in revenues is 30,000, and the change in expenses is 60,000. And part of that change is an additional permit that we were funding for $25,000. And operating expenses, again, they're pretty. There's no increases. We're just, as things go up in cost, they're increasing here. So this year's budget cycle is different than any other year before. This morning, the directors met for their final requests on what they want to present to council with the budget. We're meeting with the Utility Advisory Committee before we presented anything to council, so we don't have any feedback from council at this point. And then tonight, we're having our staff-led resident workshop as well, just to get their input before we present a tentative budget to council on the 15th. And then the final budget will be, the meeting will be on May 27th, and then submitted to the state. So there could be changes between now and May 27th. And that's the operating budget for utilities for next year, tentatively.
Could you send us, at least I'd like a copy of it, send the committee a copy of this, that way some of the smaller text will be easier to see, and if we could see it on this
The PowerPoint?
email, yeah, PowerPoint. Thank you. Is there any questions? Howard, do you have any questions?
I have
All
one,
good.
I have one question. The 2 million per year that we have as debt, I realize that's for our share of water line with SNWA. How much longer?
2030.
2030. Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess either finance or Joe, one of my first comments is there anything that the committee can do to help the staff, the council, or the residents related to this, to the budget?
Well, at this stage, given the information that Budget Manager Angela Mannanen presented and what you've seen in your packet, if the committee so desires to make a recommendation advising council based on the information that's in front of you, that's something that the committee is able to do on this agenda item.
Okay, so I think that was up for more for discussion. So did the committee have any discussion or a recommendation with the information we had from the packet or today's presentation?
Just a comment, I mean, the budget looks good to me. We're not spending crazy money, or seems like you guys are being real responsible, so yeah, it really looks good to me of my somewhat limited knowledge of it, but I'm learning.
So, Howard, do you have any comments or recommendations?
No, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, hearing none, I don't know that there's really any motion or recommendation that the committee can bring forward at this point. So, so any additional, I guess, ready to close it out. I don't see that there's anything on here. So, okay, we will close out item number 2 and go to item number 3 for a possible action, discussion of the requirements and scope of the next utility rate study.
Great, yeah, so item 3, for possible action, discussion of the requirements and scope for the next utilities rate study. We've got a rate study coming up for fiscal years 27 through 29. It's my understanding that Chairman Carr put together a little PowerPoint, so that's background information. At this juncture, would like to get feedback from the committee, particularly on the last study that was performed. There was no cost of service. And just to back up a little bit, to give you an idea of how this works, a cost of service study is needed first, so that determines how much it costs to serve the customers in each utility. Then from there, a rate study can be performed, and that's a little bit more policy driven. That's, here's what it costs to serve the customers in each utility, and then what do we do with that information? So the last go around, we just kind of messed with the policy a little bit, and that was in regards to conservation. We took the tiers for electric and water in the residential rate class. We broke them up a little bit, and we compressed the highest tier in regards to conservation. So that was the intended goal. So at this stage, if there's any feedback, if that's what the committee it would like to see move forward, we can kind of continue on in that vein. We're still in a Tier 1 federal shortage with the Bureau of Reclamation. We're expected in most all curves to be in that. I think there is some possibility in fiscal year 28 that we could go into a Tier 2 in some of the modeling, but that's where we're at with water. Electrically, you see the costs. They're projected to just kind of steadily go up. We're looking for additional opportunities to get cheaper power that will supplement the lost capacity at Hoover. So that's a little background for you, but would love to hear any general feedback you have going into this next rate study, if you have any.
Well, the one comment, we also trying to get more of a long-term purchase power possibly, because we need to offset Hoover, but if I understand correctly, it's either most or all the power that we buy an additional is off the market and not long-term, so we're subject to the market, and if we could reduce that risk, then that would be helpful too, at least in the future.
Yeah, we are actively working on that.
Okay, that's just making sure I saw, there's two pieces to it, I believe, right?
Yep,
Okay.
the city council received a subscription agreement with the Arizona Electric Power Cooperative Organization, or EPCO. That's the vehicle we're using to try and gather that final bit of secure resource at a fixed price.
Okay.
Just to, again, clarify things for those in the audience listening, and my understanding is we did a rate study around 2023, and we've been following that rate study, and we will follow it from 2024 probably to 2026 budget.
Correct.
And we're doing a rate study now, and we're in the start of it, and it'll go from 27 to 29, like you said. So is that pretty accurate?
Yes, that's accurate. And then kind of the timeline, we'll be looking to put out an RFP mid-July timeframe.
For the next one?
For the next one, look to select a consultant in the fall, and then have that study be ready for fiscal year 27.
And as far as your knowledge goes, the people who did the last one, they're
Raftellus.
do they plan on, as far as you know, I guess bidding again? Or
Yes,
they do?
they do. They have expressed interest to bid on the RFP. Yes.
Okay.
Now, Joe, did I understand correctly? You're looking at, can I do it on this agenda item, which I think it's pertinent on this agenda item, is that you're looking at training it in July for the rate study, to train the committee, or?
Yes,
some
so
type of-
we do have internal training scheduled for cost of service and rate financial requirements for staff. And then we have an abbreviated training to be presented to the committee during the committee's regularly scheduled meeting time in July. It's a 2-hour training schedule, and that would be virtual with them coming in, and it could be an agenda item for the next meeting.
Because I think we were looking at talking about the budget, the rate study a little bit more in detail today, but if we're doing training, it almost seems like it's more applicable to do it, more of the discussion during that than at today's meeting. And I guess the second question would be, is I'd be happy to briefly go over part of my slides. I don't need to go through all of them, but if that helps the committee, but if it doesn't, then we can, as long as, or if you have any questions on it, depends on how you would like to work with the slides that I developed.
Can we wait till the end and then make sure we have enough time to do that, or is that possible? or-
I don't know if we can or not. If we partially close it out and bring it back, I'm not sure how that works. Right now, I think we're in pretty good shape, because I don't plan to spend more than 15 minutes or so unless you guys have a lot of questions. I was just gonna do a quick thing, as sort of just here's some thoughts that you might think about that might help before the training type thing. Because I think,
I have a question.
what you got? Hey, Howard?
Joe, this is basically to Joe for all of us. Is there anything in that we need to look at, you think we need to look at in the next RFP as far as what we want to approach, how we want to approach this? We've used the cost of services approach. Is there any other alternative we should be looking at or considering? How is this, I guess, really coming down to how has this served us? Is it given us a good advantage? Been middle of the road? How effective has this format that we're using worked for us?
I think it's worked great. The idea is to get to the total cost of what, each utility, what it costs to bring that to the customer. Any revenue requirements we obviously want to minimize impacts to customers, maintain reliable service. So the general feedback, Howard, is that, this is an appropriate thing to do. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think, that's kind of why we chose that. That was the thoughts when we were choosing that, because we kind of mulled that over quite a bit. And I want to make sure that we did choose the right approach, or the right format to do that. So, okay, if that's good. If there's nothing, then I think we're that base covered.
Well, on top of Howard's, so back in on Howard's, is that in the comments for this packet, we talked about there was talk about a comprehensive rate and a meticulous. And so that's after the training, then that's why I would like to make sure we have the proper input to the RFPs, to make sure that's because I think that's, and if I'm understanding Howard too, that's sort of where we differed. We were saying, okay, we're not going to do the major comprehensive or the meticulous. That's what we didn't do last time. And so, and what we thought we were going to do, then we couldn't do because we didn't do as much of a scope as we thought we were getting. And so I think that's what I'm trying to agree. I'm agreeing with Howard, is making sure that we put in the proper scope in the RFP, but we have next meeting with training and stuff to say, okay, do we understand it as a committee, and what do we need to put in? So.
Yeah, just to clarify, the last study, we did not do a cost of service study. We took the existing cost of service study that was completed in the previous rate study and carried that forward. So the recommendation for this study is to do a new cost of service study. A lot has changed since 2019 as far as like what it costs to deliver the utility to the end customer. So once we have that cost of service study done, that would be part one. Then from there, we look at our existing rate structure, the way the rates are currently established, and then we can make some decisions that's a little bit more policy-based in the rate study. So,
Right, so I just want to make sure,
That's,
go ahead, Howard.
I think that's good, Joe. I mean,
Okay.
because my concern is on what we've talked about already in this meeting is with the loss of, or the reduction of water, the use of water, somehow we're going to make up for that in our rate study so that we keep the budget where it is to cover our costs. So it sounds to me like this study will help us approach that. Is that good thinking on that?
Yes, I agree with that, Howard.
Yeah, because I think, so I might, I can start and then I can stop if need be. I think part of the slides I had was talking about it, because I brought up I just have the general category of the rates, but I think it sort of does go to what you're talking about. So it's a matter of, okay, once the cost authority is looked at, then you could look at each section and see, does anything need to be tweaked? But I think the biggest thing I would definitely keep pushing on is that we can adjust each rate structure appropriately instead of peanut buttering, is what I'd call peanut buttering a percentage across each one. And I think we did pretty good last time, but I think it's something to look at each time, because I believe in the past it has been sort of just said, we need this percentage, and we're just gonna, everybody's increasing by this amount. And so then I think sometimes you sort of get off kilter to what is it, everybody paying their fair share, because some of the structures weren't necessarily designed just to say, I'm gonna increase it this way without looking at how it's done. So that's an important aspect, is that rate structure still valid for Boulder City?
Sure. So, I mean, if there's anything you want to kind of mention briefly on your slides, Chairman Carr, I think that's appropriate, and if not, we can go wait for the training to be completed and kind of do it then.
Well, I think I'll just keep it real brief. We still have over 2 hours, and so I think we can go through the rest of the agenda pretty quick. So I think it'd be helpful.
Okay.
So just go through, so if we can just pull it up. So right now, what I was looking at, sort of just use this slide as sort of a preview type thing. My basic thing I want to hit the most is the basic rate concepts, and then the structure, and then the last 6 slides, then that would be, if anybody had any major context, but just basically showing, here's the history, and does the history have does it help us for the future? That's all that is. So it sort of sees how and I'll just bring it up really quickly. So on this slide, basically trying to do, so you got revenue requirement, and so the biggest thing here, you got purchase of electricity, so I did the electrical, because I originally did 2 slides. So this slide and the next slide have some combination, but the electrical sometimes has a little more to it, so that's why I went ahead and left this in here. So the big one, of course, and I think that's the same thing that the finance was bringing up, is that you purchase electricity and capital are your big ones. Now, sometimes I think the maintenance and personnel can be also something to look at. They are what they are, but it's just something to understand and what they're looking for in the future. The rate structure, again, fairness. So that's the thing that in the next couple slides is just understanding how these different rates, how the structure is broken out, and is each group paying their fair share. The data collection, so we got energy, demand, and losses. So electrical users and user accounts. Try to understand how many users we have, how is it broken out. So that can be very important. The revenues, so we have wholesale and service charge and revenues. The reason, what I'm saying here is wholesale would be what the city pays, and so then we'd understand what the city brings as revenues in, because they're paying for what they're using. But it's nice to know how that fits into everything. Service charge, how does that work? And that would be something I think that would be good to have in this one a little more, to understand the service charge a little more. Because it's been redefined, but I'm not sure we've really talked about that, Joe, the service charge. Because originally my understanding was the way it was done in the resolution, the old resolution was, it was stated that it was based around the meters and service charge for the water. This is electrical, sorry about that, but the water definitely, in this case, it's still, this service charge is a little different. So I guess I'll get to the next slide on that. And then would there be any offsets? And as of this time, and so going in the future, we don't have any offset, definitely in electrical, we have no offsets. The expenses, I just went ahead and broke out the admin in that this is related to all of them, but you can see then that's something to understand in the future too, that 50% goes to electrical, 37 goes to water, 10 goes to sewer, 3 goes to landfill. So again, energy purchases, understanding that, the rest of the O&M, understanding that, and capital. So just having that in a little more detail, and I think that's sort of the difference between the budget and the rate study, is the budget understanding things, but the rates, we really need more data. We need to really understand so we can help, especially in a 5-year process, or 3 to 5 year, trying to understand what's expected in the future. Okay, next. So then just a general idea here. Again, this is electric and water, but the same type thing, just, you know, what to look for, the revenue requirement, cost of service. So what they said is, okay, is everybody paying a fair share? The rates and rate structures is really the cost of service. As Joe mentioned, though, we go to it, but you're still looking at rate and rate structures. How does it break out? When you're looking at electric and water, the thing that had been brought up in the past is the losses. You've got losses for line equipment for electrical, and you have losses in water with pipe leakage and stuff like that. So it's sort of a good understanding. And one thing here is you see non-metered energy, street lights. So hopefully that, I put a note in there, that was as of 22. Hopefully that's gone down with the new LED lights and stuff like that. So these are good things for the committee to understand, and that we can ask for, so the data that is collected for the rate process, so we can understand what's going on, and is there anything that could be tweaked or not. Data collection, again, so we understand the rates, we understand customers. What are we collecting from the different customer bases? Usage, what are they doing, the CIP and finances and stuff like that. You've got electrical offsites, water offsets. So again, we don't really have any electrical offset. The only offset we have now for water is the 1.1 million for the taxes. And then again, the expenses, the admin, the energy and water purchases. So just understanding how those are broken out is helpful. And then the debt. I understood the debt was to go till 3032. So it'd just be nice to know which one it is. And I think it would be helpful in the rate purpose to make sure that which way it was. I think originally it was going to be 2029 or 2030 if we paid some of it down, but I think it's 2032 now. That's what I saw in the rate study last time. So, okay, next. So then this is really quickly here. So now, as you, I think, make sure everybody understands, it's been broken out a little differently for electrical. You have an energy charge now and a delivery charge. Before we just had a energy charge. So you have an energy charge, delivery charge, and a service charge. And so that you have that in the sections is energy charge, delivery charge, residential schedule, master meter. So if you have several units with 1 meter, then apartment or something like that, that's what it's associated with. Then you have several of these other ones that are dealing with large commercial uses, and I think there's different intents for each one of those, and that would be good to understand. So what you might want to do is before next time is go to the resolutions and just read what they have, and then if we can then sometime during the rate process get those explained a little more to us, because it's very limited on the information I believe in the resolution. It'd be helpful to understand each one of those structures, and does anything need to be modified? Are there any comments on that?
I'm trying to remember your last discussion when they were doing the other rate study. There was an issue of wondering if the service charge was fair for the ones that are bulked together, like trailer parks and apartments and.
Yeah, the water. It'd be nice to review that again too, because again try to understand the service charge and how it's represented in the Schedule B, Residential B would be good to understand.
I think that was, you guys were kind of looking at, is it really fair? Are they really, those paying their fair share, that when it's just all bulked into one service charge and like an apartment user isn't paying his fair share?
Actually, it's the opposite. It's like a trailer park. If the old resolution, you looked at it, that the definition was that it was charging for the meter. So replacement of the meter and meter-related costs. And so if you're charging, you have 100 trailers, it has 1 meter. Each trailer was being charged the meter price, the service charge.
Oh, so they were being overcharged.
That's what it looked like.
That's the way you guys
That's-
looked at it.
Looked at it, yeah. So we just were trying to understand, again, fairness. We're just trying to understand. And so those are the type of things that we would like to get a better understanding of, so we understand, okay, here's how the resolution's set up, here's how the rates tier's set up. Is it fair for everybody?
And so during the training, we'll be discussing that, and
I'm not sure if they would go into that type of detail in the training or not.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll go into that amount of detail. This is just going to be, you know, what you need to know to go into a study to prepare for that. But that's certainly in that step of the process and the rate, you know, policy portion, that's something that can be discussed.
okay, thanks.
So again, the biggest reason I brought this up is just so you can look and go back and look at the resolution and just make sure everybody understands there's that many different rate structures, just to point out. And that this is related to the most current resolution, and is related to the service charge. Then, so the next one, next slide. So these are extra. So you have the credit for renewables. You have municipal rate, so it explains what the city will pay, and then the electric vehicle. So these would be, actually, these are included, I guess, in the service charge also, I get too, but they're additional. But just to make sure, then, would be good to understand. The next slide. So then the water, let me just backtrack really quick. For the electrical and then the water both, as Joe, and hopefully everybody understands, we do have separate tiers. And as you see on your bills, we have separate tiers. And that's the thing, yes, that's one thing we definitely would want to look at again is, okay, so what type of conservation aspect or even fairness? You know, one thing that we're to look at is the tiers sort of help you pay for what you use. So if I'm using less energy, then if I'm not causing to be going to the market, then maybe I can pay a little less than for those that use a large that causes us to go to the market that causes us a large amount of power. So that's complicated, but maybe there's something we can think about. So that's one of the things with the tiers that you would possibly look at. Then the water. So in the water, we have the water's easier in one aspect and harder in another. It has its complications. So you got residential A, residential B, the commercial, and then the construction. And so then you have different tiers associated with that and trying to figure it out. But, you know, so that's one thing if the cost of service allows us to sort of get a handle on who's paying for what. So I think some of the comments with water and electric is that, okay, we can't charge too much to a commercial entity to make it more expensive for them to just pass it along to the customers. But again, when we are talking conservation, maybe you need an extra tier or two that says if somebody's not using the water, maybe they can use a little less, but if they're using excessive amount of water, then it needs to be figured out a way to penalize them without penalizing the customers, if there's any way to do that. So that's where I think I'm not sure if that's an Acosta study or if that would have to be review of the different commercial uses to say what's a fair amount of water, what's a fair amount of electricity. Joe, on that?
It sounds like, you know, that would be in the rate policy, the
That
rate
would-
study portion, if it's deciding what it actually costs to serve them, how that's applied, and who bears that burden, or if there's any subsidy for commercial users. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we shouldn't really subsidize it. It's just a matter of, I think, of trying to be where we're not overcharging them either. So the cost of service you're saying is what it costs to serve them.
Correct.
And then the policy would be but you would have to have the data available to understand what they're actually using and what revenue we're getting from them, correct?
Yeah, so that the cost of service is what it costs to serve them.
No, there's two separate things. The cost of service is, I understood to be what facilities they're using, so what it costs. What I'm saying is that if we're understanding what they're giving us as a revenue, that's what they're paying us. That doesn't do anything what it is to cost. What
No,
it costs to serve.
that's that rate policy second part of it.
Right. So, but we need to collect the data. There's more data that we didn't have available in the last rate study to sort of say, because basically make sure I'm understanding, and I think that's one thing we need to sort of look at in the RFP and the training, I suppose, is to understand how do we look at that piece or can we look at that piece to say, what are the, do we have the data to understand what each customer's group is using? Because we didn't really get a chance to go over that in the last rate study that I.
Yeah, we will with the cost of service study.
Okay, so that would, okay. Okay, so I think that, if you go to the next one, I think that's the starting, yep, so that's the starting of the, okay, no, this is the breakout for the residential A and B, so this gives you a little bit more, this is again talking about 1,000 and stuff like that, so I think you can, if you, did anybody have any questions on this one? Okay, so we'll go to the next then. Okay, so then the next 6 slides, this is where what I tried to do was say, okay, this is what I could find in history was how we established the rates in 1960, and then when the resolutions were started, 1978, I believe it is. I should have had my own copy out here. And then just how things were changed. I sort of said, okay, here's the rates, here's when they were changed. Again, just sort of history might help us to understand the future. So if you guys wouldn't mind reviewing that it might help before the next meeting again, just to review this. So I was just trying to get as much data as I could get out there in a reasonable time frame. I put together 2 slides. I think that most of them were sent that probably are about triple the amount of data here, and I didn't want to go into that much detail today.
These were included in the packet. I remember
Yes,
going
yes.
over them. Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that I was just trying to explain what they were about and if there was any questions. The reason I included it, so. Okay. So I think the biggest thing is, on this one, Joe, you were asking us if we wanted to continue on with the tiers and stuff like that, if I understood correctly. So I don't think there's really a need for a motion today, because I think more of it would be after the training, and we might have more insight, and then depending on how we're gonna put the RFP together, that's where a lot of it is just to make sure that we can get the comprehensive and the meticulous rate. That's the biggest thing. So are we looking at 150,000? What are we looking at more? Because that was the reason we didn't go into more, because what we understood in the last several years was each rate study, when we tried to get to the meticulous one, it was very expensive. And so that's why we hadn't done the major one, and we definitely discouraged it last time because it was so expensive. We were told it was over $200,000 or better.
Yeah, I mean, we're hopeful with the RFP process that we'll get, a good consultant with a good price. So that's our hope this time.
Okay. So is there any other comments related to the rate study?
Just want to make sure I understood. We might have 2-hour training at the next meeting or sometime before.
Yeah, so it would be my intention to have that training for the committee at the next scheduled meeting. So, once we get to that, agenda item, want to make sure your availability, and that would be the first Wednesday in July, at 1 p.m., so July 2nd.
So we could squeeze a 2-hour training session in our meeting that normally goes 2 to 4 hours.
The idea that it would just be kind of that one item, the minutes, that item, and that's it. That would take up what we would need to do that time.
I know there's concern about staffing, too much time staff spends here. Couldn't we have training before the meeting starts? Does staff have to be here for that? Or it's just, you guys were concerned about that, not so much us. But that just seems like an awful lot for staff to be here, or they're not going to be here and come at 3 o'clock if we have training from 1 to 3. I'm just trying to understand the process for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Let's do that at the last agenda item. I think that's on the agenda.
that's how I
think
understand it
that's-
with the open meeting law and that working out. So that it would still be videoed and available to the public.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, we'll just confirm some of that. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, though. Okay, Howard, do you have any concerns or comments related to the rate study?
No, I'm fine for right now.
Okay, so everybody agrees. I don't see any motion or anything related to this. Okay, so, and make sure, Joe, I'm sorry, is there anything additional that we can help with?
Nope, thank you so much.
Okay. So I guess we will close item number 3 and go to item number 4, status update from Utilities Engineer Bill Bruniga on progress and development of ongoing capital improvement projects.
Good afternoon, committee members. We had our great explanation of budget from Angela Manninen. So converting budget into projects and results with the capital improvements program. The results of those budget efforts for capital improvements get described every month in the city manager's report, which comes out the second city council meeting of every month. And within that report, one of the pages is the utilities capital improvements status. And that one page is what I handed out to you. And we wanted to just highlight some of the ones that had the most progress or things to note. And I actually just put quickie bullet status notes right on there for you. And to get even more focused, I'd like to take a look at one of the projects in particular that we've talked about, the wastewater treatment plant and the new headwork screen. And I've got a few slides, a few pictures, and a short movie as well. So my first question is for Howard. Howard, are you watching the live stream at the same time, or you're only listening?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Thanks, Holly, for putting the pictures up. And let's start with, here's the aerial shot of our treatment plant. And from the top of the page to the bottom of the page is literally uphill to downhill, north to south, because we use gravity. So all of the town sewer flow comes into the inlet of our sewer plant at the top of the page. And it says preliminary treatment, so that's where we screen out solids. And it's also the control house, all the motors that are spraying the water in the lagoons. Their power supply is out of that control house. So after the solids are screened out, flows downhill to the lagoons, and it's basically very simple biological treatment. We don't do any fancy chemicals or further screening. The lagoons process the sewer flow, and by the time you get to the lower end of the picture, that's where we do a final chlorine treatment for disinfection. And then it goes out to our percolation streams further downhill out into the desert. And that's our typical 1 MGD of flow that goes through our sewer plant. Well, those lagoons really depend on having clear water, so to speak, no solids, because there's a lot of rags and other debris that get into the flow. So to get those out, that's what's called the headwork screen. And the one that has been there the past few years wasn't working too well, apparently. It was an auger style. So Holly, let's scroll down to next couple pictures. So there's the ground view, there's the lagoons, aerating the water. So those are motor or pumps spraying the water, and it's not good when those get clogged up with debris. Good, scroll. There's the control house, the motor, power supply is inside that building. And right next to the building, yes, that's good, keep scrolling. Thanks, Holly. Okay, so here's the actual inlet. And it's below the surface. There's this 9-foot deep channel in there. And we're just seeing the machinery on the surface that is supposed to take the solids out and dump them into that dumpster. So let's keep scrolling, Holly. This was the old system. So this project was taking out the old screen. Keep going a little further. And here, looking down in the channel, you can see how that auger was supposed to auger out the solids. The water would get channeled into that auger, get them out. Well, a lot of the solids were just going around that auger and clogging up the pumps that were spraying the water out in the lagoons. All right, so we took that out too. Let's keep going. All right, and we used this for helping our contractor understand what was involved. And, okay, so now this is what it looks like down in the channel. Basically 2.5 feet wide, 9 feet deep. And instead, this is a totally different type of technology. And let's scroll up a little bit more. Okay, so this is like a rotating screen, and you can see those baffle plates. This whole machine drops into that channel. I shouldn't say the whole machine, just these yellow screen panels go into the channel. The panels and the motors stay above the surface, and the water flows through the screen. The far side of the screen that you can't see is blanked off. That forces the water out around the screen and then continue downhill. All right, so on the right side of that image is where the water comes out, and the center part is where the incoming water goes through and all the solids get stuck on that screen. And we'll see a little video that helps see it even more graphically. Okay, so here we are. This is just a progress picture taking out the old machinery. Keep going, Holly. And we put in new conduits for the controls on the new machine. Okay, here's a progress shot setting the machine in place. And this was all custom designed. Our engineering consultant precisely measured that channel to make sure the specs on the new machine just fit right in perfectly. All right, let's keep going. The new control panel for the new screen, progress shot. And now here we are done. Here's the whole system in place. This was just a few weeks ago. And startup went extremely well. Let's keep going. Almost no hiccups. The machine was functioning within a matter of hours. The vendor's technician came out, and we basically turned everything on, and it was just working. A few checks, system checks on the electronics, and it was pulling the solids out instantly. And here's a view from the other side. And okay, so down in, here's the new machine, and you can already see, this was a part of calibration. You can see how debris is getting stuck on that screen. And what it does, one side ratchets up and pulls all the solids out, and then when it gets up above the channel, there's a spray that sprays it all off, and then a trough carries it down to the compactor. All right, let's keep going. Is that the last? Okay, good. So let's switch over to the video, just very brief, but just because it's video, it don't need sound. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Was that installed by the city employees, or was that a contracted job?
That's a good lead-in question. Let's just talk about the whole project management in general. We hired a contractor. We actually hired several contractors. And this is a part of the success story of this project. Because of the long lead time on getting that custom-made machine, which is about a year, we ordered it. We didn't have a general contractor order it for us, which is the usual approach. You want the contractor to be responsible for everything. But in this case, to fast-track it, so to speak, we placed the order right away. Finished up the engineering and the bid package, and our consulting engineer said, you know, it's probably going to cost you $500,000 to put this in today's world. Instead, we took a more expert approach of picking specific contractors and then managing them ourselves. So we hired an electrical contractor and a mechanical and a SCADA technician, and then manage them all ourselves. So instead of $500,000, it only cost the city $200,000. So great savings, good success story for the city. How are we doing, Holly? We're good. Okay, good. And that was a part of what I wanted to point out, how we really tried to manage this very tightly for the city. Okay, so here's incoming water. That's what it looks like. There's the screen ratcheting up. Now that's clean. See, it's been washed out clean on the upgoing side, and you can see the spray water, how it sprays off the debris And you can see we're taking rags and everything out of the water, so it's pretty clear water going out to the lagoons. And there's the compactor, which squeezes out the last bit of water, and then up that silver pipe, and it just drops out in pieces, the compressed solids, and off to the landfill. That's it. Sure, let's watch it one more time.
That was brief.
The highlight, because if you go out there now, this is all covered with the panels, so you don't actually see the screen working if you were just to go out there. So that's why I wanted to at least show the video at least once, how much debris it's really taking out, and then how much of it really gets sprayed off. And that's okay, we don't need to show it again. But it's been extremely effective right off the bat. So good example of our CIP program. The handout, notes, we can go over the way the city manager's report is laid out for the utilities CIP. On this one page, the top section are the electrical related projects, usually with the E prefix on the Munis code. That's our accounting system terminology. So those are the E projects, and then you go down to the W projects for the water systems, and then S for sewer. We have several there, and then landfill at the bottom. So just picking out a few of the highlights of each of these. For example, at the top, we're replating feeder circuits in town. So these top two are out in Hemingway Valley. And these are design packages that we've been working on for a while. Well, we're finally finishing up and getting ready for bid. And that top one is the priority, and our highlight for you is, depending on the bids we get back, because we're concerned about cost, might affect the budget on the second one down, E2103. So we want to do E2102 for sure. And so we'll see budget-wise how it goes for being able to do 2103 also. The Substation 3 rebuild, we've talked about that before. We're managing that through Colorado River Commission, CRC. And we've mentioned how the transformers have been ordered. And by April 1st of next year, 2 transformers for Substation 3 should be delivered. So that's about 1 year from now. So we've ordered those while we continue with the whole rest of the substation. The breakers are the next procurement item that we're working on now. That's the second biggest piece of equipment for the substation.
So now so it's still showing design. Are we gonna do some actual groundwork pretty soon, or do you still have to wait for anything major? When do you expect to actually start doing to work on the substation itself?
Oh, the substation. Not till the end of next year at the soonest.
So you're
Right?
talking
FY '27.
FY '27 be the earliest to actually do any groundwork.
Yep.
So you can't do any groundwork until you get more supplies, is that, or
Well, right off the bat, the transformers won't be here till next April.
right? But my understanding is you're putting the substation in a different location. So that was part of the thing, is we could start building.
It's still the same site.
Right. But can't we start building some things before the transformers come in?
Yeah, as far as when we'll actually break ground, at this point, we're just still calling it FY '27, right?
Yeah, we can get you a detailed schedule, updated from the Colorado River Commission, but, we don't want to have too many critical path tasks go concurrently. So it really depends on how soon we can get the big components, which is going to be the breakers, and then the control house relays, when we can get those, when they're expected to be delivered.
Okay.
And then we can kind of build off that.
Yeah, it might just be nice. It'd just be nice so whenever we have time or something to sort of understand the project a little bit in more detail, like you said, it'd be helpful, I believe.
Yeah, but we could highlight that project, kind of like the way I highlighted the sewer plant project. We could.
Yeah, and thank
At
you. That
some
was
point.
a good success story is always good to see. So thank you for that. I appreciate the sewer aspect.
Good. Yes, you're welcome. Let's take a look at a couple of the water projects.
Can I go, before you go on, can we talk about substation number 4 really quick? So I guess if I looked at the dashboard right, and I'm not seeing anything else, so we've talked about it, but it still seems to be, for lack of a better word, still seems to be sort of in limbo. The $2 million that is not going to be used, so we are collecting, theoretically, we're collecting $2 million, because it was in the budget for this year for Substation 4. Substation 4 is being, so it's really not closed, it's just being put off. And so, and then it looks like on the dashboard, it's saying that it might be put as part of Substation 3, but we're also collecting $2 million in addition to Substation 3 now. So maybe it'd be, if we can get a little update on that, it'd be helpful.
Okay, sure. Carol Ellis, our CIP coordinator.
So in the 5-year plan, the 5-year CIP plan, Substation 4, the total amount is in fiscal year 29, including inflation. So what we did on Substation 4 rebuild, the E2302, is we closed it, which means that $2 million is no longer slated for that project, and it just stays in the fund.
Okay, so it's in the fund.
It did not get moved to Substation 3. We literally closed it, which means that it's no longer allocated, and in the utilities, we never move the money. We basically freeze the money when it's slated and approved for the CIP.
So when you're saying that so if we go to, for instance, the city manager report, and it shows the available money, then is this $2 million going to be there?
By closing it out, that means that we no longer have it slated to that project or held for that project. So as far as you going in and calculating on the city manager's report, how it's going to affect, that would be a budget manager question. I don't prepare that portion of the report to tell you exactly what line to go look at.
But you said it goes someplace, I'm just trying to, because basically
all I did is, when I closed the project, that means that money's no longer held for that project. It never leaves the fund, it just isn't available in the fund. So when I close a project, that means that I no longer am holding that money for it. And in Substation 4, the entire amount would be slated in 29, and it's not, we're only approving 1 year at a time. So the fiscal year 26 CIP will be approved. So as of technically right now, until we approve fiscal year 29, there is no money for Substation 4 that is approved by council.
Okay. I guess, but, sorry to belabor it, but in the past, I thought we had done, if we had like $2 million, we could reallocate it. So we're collecting, I think it's 2.1, or it's over $2 million for Substation 3 in fiscal year 26. So if we just move this $2 million over, we shouldn't have to collect as much in 26. I'm a little confused why we have to.
Okay, we did not move
No, it's okay,
this
but
into Substation 3.
would-
We closed it, which means that gave us more money available in the utility fund to fund our fiscal year 26 that gets approved. So by closing out the project, we're not moving that funds anywhere, but it means there's more funds available in the utility fund that are not being held for that project.
Okay.
I'm going to take that to mean as unrestricted.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is the money I was talking about earlier, where you have it in the budget, you don't spend it, and that's what this
Correct.
$2 million is part of that.
So we're a pay-as-you-go.
Yeah.
So we don't, if we approve that project, we hold that money right then.
Okay.
So by closing it, I stop holding the money for Substation 4, which means that is more money available in that's not restricted in the utility fund. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Taking a look at water projects, just the three I've highlighted here. We've talked about copper service replacements around town. Those continue. We consider those to be on schedule. They progress. As you drive around town, you can see the asphalt repairs where a house has had its copper service put in. Our 14-inch water line out to the El Dorado Valley. We've got a project to put PRVs on that line because that line just has really high water pressure and every so often has had a blowout. We had one a few months ago way at the far end by the power plant way down the valley. So this has been a known issue and we continue work on that. It's a pretty elaborate design to put in a PRV station on that pipe. Reservoir improvements. Here I've given a couple of examples of what we're doing for reservoir improvements. We've got circulators on order, and we're putting those in combination with flow meters. We don't have our own flow meters out of our own reservoirs. We get gross pumping numbers from SNWA, but we don't actually measure exactly what we're using for ourselves to know. And we've talked about the circulators in the past. They help with trihalomethane buildup in the water, which is a byproduct of the chlorine disinfection. So that helps make sure that we've got disinfected water all the way to the end of the water system. So that's what circulators do for us. Towards the end of this section, I highlighted another area needing pressure reduction, which is near the airport. That's downhill part of town. We've had historically high water pressure down there too. And the first thing we do for making a change to the water system is we actually run a computer model of the projected pressures, and it's pretty accurate. Well, when we did that model for that part of town before putting in PRVs, we discovered some problems with maintaining adequate fire water flow if we were to put in PRVs. So we're investigating that situation right now. We're actually running some flow tests on the fire hydrants out at the battery storage plant at the town site solar facility. Taking a look at sewer system, we've highlighted the new screen. Other project we've talked about, the lift station number 1, that's related to the odor scrubber, and that is still working quite well. The next step of those improvements, we want to put a fence around that facility. The chlorine contact chamber, which had a pretty significant budget. Taking a closer look, we've discovered that we were able to do some pretty precise repairs that were very economical, so we're on the verge of closing out that repair. Probably by our next report, we'll call this one closed. I have pictures of that one too. Maybe next time for that one. And you can tour these too, anytime you want to go take a look, anytime. And the lift station 4, which is Keys Drive, the streets towards the lake, that's the furthest away lift station, and it's the smallest. That lift station involves submersible pumps that are failing, and so we actually have those on site, and we're organizing the project to put those in right now also. So that's the first step of lift station 4 improvements. And those are pretty much the highlights we wanted to cover for today.
I've got a couple of questions. The wastewater, the blue dumpster that these solids go into, are those going to our landfill?
Yes, they're not considered hazardous waste.
And then the treated effluent out of the bottom going out into the desert, is that the same water quality that we sell to the sand and gravel operation?
Yes.
Okay.
And was used for the I-11 construction, dust control.
Right. So we still have quite a bit of that water that we discharge into the desert.
It's typically 1 million gallons per day or 1 MPG. To put that in context, the whole rest of the Las Vegas Valley treats 300 MGD. That's what goes back to Lake Mead.
We're currently not utilizing very much of our wastewater, only to the gravel, sand and gravel place, and that's it for now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anything in the future, in the next year or so that will require? I mean, I'm trying to remember if we have any solar plants coming online, start construction. I don't think we do we, in the next year?
We've got land allocations for future projects, but nothing that's really
Nothing
getting
that's firm.
close. Yeah.
So, okay.
And for people have talked about over the decades, there's like every decade somebody thinks of something that we could do with this water, and it's just not enough to be economical.
Did you say 1 million gallons a day?
Yes. Which anything that involves being referred to as 1 million sounds like a lot, but in this context, it's not. Any other highlights, Joe? We think we're good.
Just in general, I mean, to comment on the SNWA feasibility study related to the wastewater treatment, the treated effluent, we do expect an update from SNWA to be presented to City Council in either May or June.
Which would be the latest study of what to do with the water. More so with the intention of the credits of what goes back to Lake Mead. Good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Anything, Howard?
No, I'm fine.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, do you have anything else on that one? Okay, so we will close out item number 4 and go to item number 5, which is the update on the water and power consumption.
Yeah, that's good. All right. Thank you. So yeah, item number 5 is an update on water and power consumption. This is basically year-to-date for calendar year 25. So in your packet, you can see not only our cumulative deliveries, but the other jurisdictions, Henderson, North Las Vegas Valley Water District, Nellis. And just to kind of comment, with the 2 completed months of January and February, both months higher than the previous year, and I believe the 3-year average. My understanding has to do with the temperatures and lack of precipitation of those 2 months. And then to kind of talk a little bit about power, for that same time period, we peaked at just about 22 megawatts on January 22nd, early in the morning, about 7:30 a.m. We do have a new kind of a server that the Colorado River Commission manages with our meters, so we're seeing those in a little different look than the way we did in the past. We're able to gather more data also, and can give that to you all in the future. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any on water and power consumption year to date.
I noticed you just had water on your handout. As far as power, I mean, obviously water, we used more water. How did we do on power for January and February, right?
Yeah, so the The information that I got that you should have as a handout, we did peak, it shows a graph and then gives the maximum. So,
Yeah, we did.
thank you, Holly. Yeah,
We do not
perfect.
have, we do
Yep.
not have it. So you'll send it to us? Thank you.
Yeah, so,
It wasn't in the packet, correct?
no, this is, yeah, be a handout.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is because, apologies, this was presented to us and we were able to gather this information later. There was a change in the system on the back end. So the way this kind of looks, so Boulder City BC 5, that's our 69 kV connection from Mead. So that shows you the curve and maximum value from Mead, 12.5 megawatts. Also shows the VAR demand profile as well, which is interesting. This particular report I ran. And then, Holly, if you go to the next page, that'll... Okay. Oh, just if you scroll down. So this BC tap, that is our 230 connection at the BC tap coming from the 230 kV portion of the Mead substation. And that's a little bit less load, but half the town is on that. And if you, let's see, I've got it. If you scroll down just a little bit more, you could see the, yeah, it showed there's the total. So we had the KVA for the tap, but this is our total megawatt load for both sources combined. It's not something that we would see out of the ordinary. We do have a lot of all-electric loads. It's not clear I didn't go back and look at the temperature for this particular day to see what caused that maximum, but it's not out of the ordinary to see that type of load in the winter.
And this is some of the things we'd be able to talk about during the rate study, so we get a little more detail about the consumption and possibly different customers that might be doing, or different groups.
Yeah, with the data we have available, we don't have AMI set out in the field. That is something that we can we're doing a pilot program to get that. So what that means is that's more readily available meter information that sends and receives information. And with that data, we can, in a rate study, look at time of use, for example, for customers that may have their own solar generating facility or alternative energy generating facility and a battery backup. And those are types of products that other utilities offer for customers that kind of have their own autonomy. They would pay a lower rate on average, and then during peak demand, they would pay a higher rate, but that's when they have their systems set up to where they're using their own resources, and it saves the utility funds and it also saves the customer individually if they're set up. But we don't have AMI set up, so that'd be something that we'd probably have to look at, beyond this next rate study.
Well, but this rate study, we would have data on lease bills and how much power the different groups are using. Per month.
Per month, but that's just one read in time, so I don't know what you would do with that information.
Well, you'd have per month generated for a year or so you'd understand, you should sort of see, okay, here's a big power source, just sort of like the water. The big power use of the water is the golf courses. And so it's just sort of understanding and sort of, I guess, like you presented to the city council where you showed, okay, you have the residential, you just had some of the main groups.
No, I misunderstood you. Yeah, all that information is going to be in the cost of service study. All that is needed for the cost of service.
Right.
I misunderstood you. I thought that you were talking about different rate structures like time of use.
No, I'm just trying to get, well, that you would have a little bit of time of use, because if they're billed by time of use, then you sort of know what time of use is, how much they're paying, how that section a revenue is being done. Not during the time of use, but overall, this is. So
I apologize. I misunderstood you.
Okay, yeah, it's nice to get, so I know that we only need to do that during the rate study, but it's helpful to at least make sure we can get to that.
Yep. So this is something that we plan on reporting out quarterly. We'll have this information. It goes into other pieces of information like the Integrated Resources Plan, which is an update we provide as a federal hydropower customer annually. And then every 5 years, we do a little bit more in-depth IRP.
How big is that file that you're just showing is it a huge file or?
No, it's only a few kilobytes. It's not all the data. It's just a visual representation of it.
I just wondered if you could send it to us.
Yeah. Yep, that's not a
That might be
problem.
interesting. I really can't see it from here.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be helpful, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank-
All right.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anything, Howard, on the consumption use?
Nope, you guys covered it. I was gonna ask for that, copy of that as well.
Okay,
We're good.
so you're good.
Thanks, Joe.
Anything else, Joe? Okay, thank you. So we will close out item number 5 and go to item number 6 then. So we have a couple issues, I think, on number 6 now. And I'm still not sure how things are falling out. Some of the suggestions I think that are being coming up lately is that maybe we could do some more workshops. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about too was that, and I think it was also suggested, was that to gather data, maybe the workshop is better related, and then we can say so you might want to do a workshop on a non-meeting month. And then we could try to make sure we understand the data that we know is coming up. For instance, maybe we can do more of a background in the budget. Maybe we can do more of a background on the maintenance, or the ongoing capital, understanding what's there. So we can sort of focus on that. And then when you come back to the meeting, it's like, okay, we would have possibly agenda item might be discussion, and then for possible action, recommendations or advice from the committee. So what we would advise maybe on it. So that's one way. And so we would have time to maybe even think about it. So we could discuss it during the meeting. And I think Randy had put it too, that maybe that would take less staff members. Right now, I think we do our best to say, when do you need your staff members here? And they wouldn't necessarily need to be the whole time. But I guess trying to figure out what helps both the city and us. I think the thing also I wanted to just emphasize and make sure that I'm doing my proper job as the committee members. How can we help? So what can this committee do to help the city council, help the residents, and help the city staff? I'm sure that's what the intent is with the resolution behind us. I'm sure that's all the intent here. So the more we understand and the more we can know how it is we can help, then the better off everybody would be, I would think. So, and the reason I'm saying that here is then how do we go with the future meetings and future action items? That's what I'm trying to lead into.
Well, we were talking earlier about the training. That seems to me that, do we have to have that training at our meeting? Can we have it like we did the budget training in a cell before the meeting? Or I know you said it might be something that you want to put out at the meeting so that it goes out to everybody.
No, that's something we can have, before the meeting, and I mean, even can investigate doing, that in June as a possibility, and it's having the meeting in July. That was just when we had it scheduled. So
Is that training somebody coming in to do it, or is that city staff doing that?
no, it is a consultant
Oh.
that's doing it first internally to city staff, and then the idea is an abbreviated version of that training be provided to the committee.
Is it going to be the same training as city staff?
But abbreviated, yes.
Abbreviated.
So the training for city staff is a half-day training.
Oh, okay.
And you don't want to keep your hair a half-day. So a 2-hour max training, and so that's something we can do, either as the next meeting or separately, individually. That's fine too.
And did I hear that was going to be a virtual?
Yes.
Oh, so we can, it's not going to be live, or it will be live, or it's just a something you?
They would be virtual.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it'll be done live?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder what would be the best use of our time and everybody else's time to do that training, whether it's before or, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do it during our meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we could look to do it.
I don't know
maybe
how
in June.
everybody else feels about that,
I
but
think June would be good if we can get a meeting date, even if it's the first week when we normally would have our meeting. People
Sure.
have that set aside, but making sure that everybody's available.
when does the city do it?
April 15th.
So that's coming up soon.
Yeah.
With everybody's schedule in the summertime, it seems like there's no reason why we couldn't do it soon, is there? After the city does theirs? So you're talking about the 4-hour training the city does?
Yes.
It's in April.
Yep.
Is there any reason why we have to wait till the summer to do that, when we're all taking vacations and gonna be gone, or?
No, I can work with the consultant and make sure that they're available for that time. So I'll have to get back to the committee on that, but that's something that we can certainly explore.
I mean, a reasonable amount of time, a month or so after the city training, is that? What do
Well,
you
if
guys
it's
think of it?
virtual, we can do it from any place,
Yeah, that's,
us committee members.
Well, it'd be a little harder because the interaction would be a little harder virtual. Because they're going to be on virtual, you'd have to be on virtual too, and I don't know, I don't care. If we could all be there, that'd be great. If we could all connect somehow, I guess.
What do you think, like May then, Randy?
yeah, I know I'm gonna be gone a month in the summertime. I'm not sure if it's June or August. A lot of people, I don't know how you guys do, but we try to get out of here in the summertime. May is, I mean, it just seems like there's no reason to delay it until we actually talk about the information at our July meeting. I would go for something in May sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, if May's not too early, I think I don't really have anything planned right away. May might be easier, because you're right, sooner, if we're meeting every 3 months, we've sort of laid that out. Now we need to sort of get a few of these that we might want to put in between the 3 months, if that's doable. So yeah, I think May might not be a bad idea if that's something we can work with. So what's the rest of the committee? May be something we could work with?
I would agree with that, if we could have Joe check and see what their availability
Okay.
is.
Of course.
Yep.
Yeah, May is better for me. My wife has all kinds of stuff planned this summer, so I know I'm good for May.
And that would be the regular meeting time, the first Wednesday in May? Okay. May 7th. Okay.
Okay, Howard, does that sound okay to you?
Hold on. That's fine. I don't know exactly what I'm doing in May yet, but if I'm here, I'll be there.
Okay, yeah, so if I guess just then you would email the group and make sure that once you find out if that would work or not. But if we tentatively say May 7th is what we'd prefer, that I think that's a great way to go.
Okay. And then have our regularly scheduled meeting in July.
Right.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, because what I see right now is that we should be able to put the SNWA on the agenda, at least be able to discuss what new information's out there. Is that correct for July?
I believe that would be ready, yes.
And that's the second. That's the next question. Is it the 2nd or the 8th? What is?
No, Josh sent out a,
What's that? I understand, but the calendar currently shows it as July 8th, so that's what I'm trying to just make sure I'm understanding. The city calendar shows it as July 8th.
Oh, well, I think that's an error.
Okay.
I do believe
Josh, you sent out a memo, didn't you, to
Yeah.
ask if we could?
we'll get
Yeah, I
that
sent out a
corrected.
memo asking if the second was good for everybody.
So, okay, just making sure that we have the proper data. So then I guess the other idea about having workshops to sort of gather data, and then I think we can discuss it a little bit easier, and then when we're trying to make a recommendation, I think the rate process is going to be a little different, so, because that one, we'll probably want to interact with the consultant on a reasonable basis, so whether quarterly will work, we might need workshops with that, just to sort of say, how's it looking, and then have a little heads up for the recommendations. So it seems like something that's reasonable. So for the city and the committee, both. Is that?
You talking about have a workshop, another workshop before the July meeting?
No. So next year, so we can sort of, because this is future agenda, so are we agreeing that workshops is something we might start fitting in? Or is this a one-time only?
We have been, right? I mean.
No, we haven't had a workshop yet.
Well, we
for
had,
some time.
I guess we've had a training. I don't know. I guess that's not really a workshop then. Oh, okay.
That was something different. So that's the thing that I'm just trying to, we've talked about them, and so far we haven't initialized anyone, so now we're initializing one, and it's been a little bit suggested that maybe we can utilize them better, and that's what I'm trying to get a feel for. So it doesn't have to be an exact, maybe July, we push it a little bit, but I think with the rate process, there'll be a lot of data with that rate process, and I think a workshop will help that, and so maybe we can figure out a way to, so we're not taking too much time in this meeting, but we can also say, okay, this is a workshop, we know it might take longer because we're trying to gather data, and then if we can discuss it during that time, and then we come to the meeting and we see the agenda, okay, what do we really need? Well, how can we help with the agenda? What can the committee do to help? And then we know, okay, here's the data we've just learned about, now we can make better recommendations. And sometimes it's better to say, let us think about it, we've discussed it, we thought about it, we come back, discuss it really quick and say, yeah, these recommendations make sense. So I think that's an advantage of having a workshop and then a meeting that we're trying to do advisement on. No approval, but advisement.
Well, I'm just not sure what subject you want to do a workshop on, other than the big one is, of course, the workshop we're going to,
Well, the
that
next-
information for the rate study. But is there, I mean, we really got some great information at the extended last meeting on the budget and capital improvements and what subject do you?
So then we're looking at once the consultant has gotten the data, crunched the data, and so we're looking at somewhere in the late fall or early or winter sometime, then you would have another meeting, a workshop to say, oh, here's the data. Here's what we were talking about.
Oh, okay, so you are talking about that specific subject.
Yeah, we're talking about new
I'm just,
data.
maybe you could go over quickly I don't remember the time frame of the last one in '23. So we're gonna have, the city's gonna have training, we know about that. We're gonna have training, we know about that. In July, we have to come up with an action
RFP,
item.
yep.
Okay, and that's gonna be, and you say in July, when does the RFP go out? You said in July?
Mid-July is when.
Mid-July, so
we-
we're gonna have our meeting first.
Yep, yeah, so we would want, the expectation then would be, say we get this workshop done in May, on this, training, and the meeting in July, the expectation would be all the inputs to complete the RFP, any changes, additions we would want from the committee.
So we're really, we're July, that's it. After the July meeting, we're done, basically, right?
No, you're done with the RFP, then you gotta go into the rate study itself.
Well, the RFP is gonna be what's gonna be done in the rate study, correct?
It's going to select the consultant that is used for the study.
Yeah, but it includes what's the rate study's gonna include.
Right.
It's an outline of the whole thing.
Yes.
So I'm not sure where our input only comes in at that point. Beyond that, we don't have any more input, correct?
You could have input then, in your purview is the revenue requirement. So is the rate study is a living document.
Oh, it changes a lot.
Based on the budget. So it's,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
They're gonna come in, like in the past, they're gonna come in and make recommendations, and you're gonna have 1 to 15 different recommendations that they're gonna do.
And and that's a 30-day or 90-day,
So-
from July when the RFP's put out till they actually,
Till we select. And
is how much time frame or
that we select a consultant.
how
Okay.
much time frame is that?
The-
From the RFP issue till you select?
Yeah, 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
We'll have an internal team. We would like a committee member to be a part of that process, the RFP selection process. Then once the consultant is selected, the study would take, between 8 and 10 months to complete. And then the idea would be any changes, additions as a result of the study, what they found, okay, that goes into effect for our fiscal years '27 through '29.
And
So
so
then
you're
now-
going to have you had committee member in the past for the last study, or when you guys did it, or how did that work?
We did not have a committee member part of the RFP for the last study. There has been committee members that have been part of RFP studies for different committees. The Airport Advisory Committee on the tower, the Audit Committee on that. So that's been something that's recent, that's, been something that council has appreciated. So that's a direction we're looking to go forward, to make sure the committee's involved on the front end, to make sure all the inputs
Because
are
of the
needed.
lack of it last time? Is that
Feedback. on the
feedback from the committee last time?
Yes,
Yeah,
feedback
okay.
on the last study, concerns about the information that the study produced and how the information was used. We want the process to be completely transparent.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to be equipped to serve your duty as advisory committee to the city council. So that's what we want, absolutely.
And I would like to be a part of that.
So
Or
the
do it,
time
that's no
frame you're
problem.
talking about for a workshop is probably not going to be before the RFP is done and a company's selected. It's going to be from the time frame they start doing their work per the RFP in that 8 to 10 month, which is, like I said, it's a living document that changes.
Yeah, so what would happen is we can do it like one of the years, well, most of the time, I think we tried to do it, I think it was put into the RFP, is that the utility committee would be part of the information gap. Well, I don't know if we were advised on part of the rate study. So let's say that they start in January and they say it takes 3 or 4 months to gather data, get it organized. Somewhere in March or April, we would be included in. I think that's where another workshop would be, is, okay, here's what we've collected so far, here's some of our thoughts, do you have some input on it, and we go forward. And then we would have, hopefully, another input before they make the final recommendations, and then we would have input on their final recommendations. So those would be where you would have, workshops would be handled.
That 8 to 10 month period.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the only input we're going to have is maybe a committee member for that 45 days. You talked about having a committee member where the RFP is between the time it's put out and a company's selected. And you're talking about maybe having a committee member involved in that, correct? That's what you were talking about earlier?
Yes.
You would also have input on what goes into the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kind of what you guys should be talking about now for the meeting in July, since we've already established that we're going to try to shoot for that training in May. So right now, we should kind of just focus on what the July meeting is going to be about, if we're just going to have that training in May.
Well, I was just confused about the input you said. You want to have a committee member involved in input. You were talking about after the RFP, between the time the RFP is put out and the company's selected, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
In the
and that's
selection
after
process.
July,
So we could decide that in the July meeting.
okay,
We can also decide in the July meeting what goes into the RFP.
okay,
So those are very appropriate agenda items.
Agenda items,
For the
okay.
July meeting. And then in general, workshops don't need to be completely limited to, rate studies. I mean, there can be other topics that could be brought to the committee if that would be of benefit related to the revenue requirement that the utility receives. I mean, we could look to bring in, somebody from the Colorado River Commission. There's other options we have. So if we had the first workshop in May, and it's, whether we do just one or every, 2 a year or a quarter, something like that, we can have them. The idea would be giving the committee information, able to ask and answer questions, so that, going into the next meeting, there'd be a little bit of preparation and understanding on inputs for advisement to city council, if that makes sense.
okay, so we've got an agenda item, right? For a couple of agenda items based on choosing a committee member, and what else? And I guess to go over the process in July, right?
Right. So the reason we're bringing up the workshops now is to give the city, if the city agrees with it, but also give everybody here to understand, okay, we were getting used to only meeting every 3 months.
Yeah.
So we wanted people to understand that, and I think most of us are retired, So we'll have to open our schedules up a little bit.
Well, it sounds
So
like
the
we're
sooner we
gonna,
know, the better we can schedule or.
it sounds like we're gonna need a workshop possibly once after a contractor's been selected and that process, that eight-month process, it sounds like we're probably gonna need some type of a workshop in the middle of that to kind of keep up with what's going on. I mean, I don't know what other subjects
Well, that's what
we need a workshop for other than this.
Well, Joe's brought up some good points. There is a lot of data that the city does and deals with that we don't deal with, haven't dealt with in our business and stuff. So as us to understand and make recommendations to city council, we don't necessarily have all the facts. And so if they bring an expert in as a workshop, it's easier to say, okay, well, here's the process that we do with energy. Here is an understanding. I don't know if we can even like some of the water contracts or something like that. So we get into a little bit more detail, and we understand the city better. We can understand finances, we understand capital overall, but we don't necessarily understand how the city does it. And so the more we can understand, but it's hard to do in these meetings, so maybe a workshop is a better way to do
Well,
it.
it sounds like our next workshop is probably gonna be with the study, right?
Well, no, it's not.
We're gonna have a training,
They're gonna
and
do
then
a
we're
general
gonna
study.
discuss it in July
Uh-huh.
at the meeting. And at some point after that, it seems like we're gonna have a workshop sometime in that next 6-month period for the RFP study.
We do a workshop for the training, and then we would do another
Well, it's not, you
workshop.
said that's not a workshop, that's just training.
Well, no, that's a workshop.
That is, okay.
So May is a workshop.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what that's what I'm trying to get across here. So and maybe I'm saying something wrong, but what I'm trying to say is there was an opportunity to have more workshops to gather more data for the committee can gather more data and discuss it. Because we can ask the city to send things to us, but we can't discuss it. And so the workshop would allow us to understand more of how the city interacts with different aspects.
Yeah, I understand the concept of the workshop. I'm just trying to nail down what we're after. It seems to me like what we're after is in July, maybe we put that also in the agenda item included that says that we're going to discuss a workshop, which to me, the next workshop is going to be about that contract. I don't know what else we're talking about we need to be more educated on and make decisions on because I know, I see what you're after. You want to know when we're going to have the next workshop and what it's going to be about.
No, I'm not even sure about that. I'm just trying to give people a heads up to say, okay, if we decide to have a few more workshops, I think Joe was saying, do we have 2 a year? Do we have, how many workshops? So you sort of can put it into everybody's vacation schedule. We just talked earlier that, hey, the summer looks like it's pretty well shot for most people. So if we understand ahead of time, and then we find out, Joe brings some suggestions or something to say, hey, this might be a good topic for you guys to understand more, so we know more about a rate process, or even know something more that we can be a little more, a recommendation to the city council for the next budget or something like that. It's just an example. So, or we understand how the consumptive use is and who does what, where, and how. And so I'm not trying to get it out. I'm just trying to get the concept up because we've talked about workshops, but we haven't had any yet. And now we're talking about maybe we will incorporate a little bit more, and if everybody agrees to that, then it's just something we can sort of plan into it. So maybe we do leave most of that first week available if people can do that on their time schedule.
Well, we're going to have a workshop in May already, right?
Right.
And we're probably going to have one, I mean, it seems like we should probably wait till July to decide when the next workshop is and what subject it's going to be.
And that's fine.
Is that okay?
I'm just trying to get people to.
Because we're going to have one. We're almost scheduled it, it sounds like, and we're pretty much done with that, it sounds like. But
Okay.
yeah, I just don't know, I don't think we have enough data on what we need to be more educated about right now, other than the RFP, the study.
Okay, well, there's no use of continuing, it's fine.
I mean, we could talk, I think if we put it on the agenda again to talk about
that's fine.
future
That's fine.
in July, I think then we'll have a better idea of if we're going to need another one for this study and if we have any other subjects, like maybe the reuse water problem, maybe because since the city council is going to get a big update on that, I'm sure we're going to be more educated in that, and maybe we'll want to do a future one on that and have SNWA come in and give us some type of a progress or what their plan is or something along that. But I think right now, other than the rate study, I don't.
Yeah, I'm
know
just
that
trying to
we
get
wanna decide
I'm
that.
just trying to get people's availability. That's all. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to be conscious of everybody's schedule. That's all I'm trying to do. So we can definitely put it on to, so I guess if we're happy with that concept, then we're looking at the May workshop. July, I guess we have the normal, the normal agenda items. And to add to the agenda item would be the rate study RFP. So however that's best worded, because I guess at that point, you definitely would want some recommendations from it. So it'd probably be something just worded somewhere that, discussion and then possible recommendations from committee, something like that.
Sure.
And then you're going to have, so it depends if you need a vote on a committee member
Right.
for the RFP. So if you wanted to have that separate, we could do that to make it easier. And then it'd be nice to have at least the SNWA to say, can you at least start discussions on it?
Yep. I've got those 3 written down.
And then again, if the normal agenda item is the discussion of potential agenda items, then we could just continue on with what's the best look at the future.
Okay, very
Sorry,
good.
didn't mean to belate anything, just trying to get understanding out there. Okay, we good?
So, we have our normal, we're still on the
Agenda.
agenda
Uh-huh.
items.
Yeah.
We're going to have our normal ones, right?
Sure, yeah, the update on capital, update on water and power consumption.
And then we're going to have 1 or 2 on the RFP study.
Yeah, I got choosing a committee member to be on the RFP selection committee, inputs into the RFP for cost of service and rate study.
Do you want to put something in there for future workshops?
Well, I think we can do that on the agenda.
We'll have that same agenda item, the last
it'll-
agenda item that's discuss potential agenda items related
Also,
to
we can
revenue
discuss it then.
requirements.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
I just had a couple of comments. Might as well do it now while we're doing the agenda. I know we did discuss, and I've emailed Josh on this, about discussions about the SNWA study, and I guess, Josh didn't want to put it on the agenda because there really was no update. But, I mean, to me, there's always an update, even if it's just, I would still, and then we talked about putting it on the schedule every time. I would still, and I don't know how the rest of the committee members feel, I still think that should be on the schedule as an update, even if it's just SNWA is not doing anything, or they're going to have again, we talked about, so I'm afraid we can't discuss it hardly unless it's on the agenda. That would be my concern. Now, maybe we could get away with that, if it's something we can get away with, discussing the reuse study when it's not on the agenda. But the last meeting, I thought that was in the minutes pretty much, that we were going to put it on the agenda until it's settled. How do you guys feel about that?
If I don't hear anything, I'm assuming that nothing has been done.
Well,
And that
we-
they're still working on it.
Yeah, but it'd be nice to know what they're working on. I mean, like you said, Josh's comment, and for, maybe you can go over it again. The the council's going to be updated by SNWA, correct?
Yes, in
Which
May,
is-
May or June.
In May or June, we don't know
Yeah.
when yet.
Right.
I mean, you don't have any more details on that other than,
The consultant has completed their first task order and given that information to SWA. They're going over it, their executive team.
so a consultant's been hired. See,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
stuff we don't know.
Oh, Brown and Caldwell has been doing the study. That's been,
I
it's-
didn't know that.
Yeah, see, I guess, because I agree with you, Randy, that was thinking, I guess we thought we agreed to have it on the agenda item, so we can just talk in general.
We could ask
Just get
questions.
some in general. So so that's the point I agree with, and that's some of the things we might even have to do a workshop on, that's what I'm trying to
Well,
get across.
my
I think
apologies, Randy.
if we discuss it, then we'll decide if we need a workshop.
Okay, well, that's
But,
fine, but-
I mean, I'd like to make a motion again, so that's more official, that we put that on the agenda from now on until the issue's settled. Can I make that motion? Or have we settled it yet?
See, this is a possible action, so I guess like, you can make a
Or
motion.
do we need to,
and
do we
if
need to
some-
go through a motion, or can we just agree
You certainly
upon it?
can.
I mean, it's up to you, whatever the protocol is. I mean, we're doing an agenda for next month, I mean, next time, obviously, the next meeting. But I kind of want to make it every meeting, myself, that's how I feel about it. To me, it's such an important issue. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to get on a committee, is to keep an eye on what's going on. And I get asked that question all the time by people. In fact, half the time they're amazed that we dump so much water out of the desert, you know, after they read about what, you know, all the recredits and all that stuff. So if that's the way to do it, I could just make a motion.
Sure.
So I'll make that motion.
I'd second that. Joe, that's something that you can just put in your report, isn't it?
Yes.
On a recurring basis, yeah. I'd support that.
Well, again, are we talking about a motion or, because I know we've been halted before because it wasn't on the agenda and we couldn't discuss it. Now, if we could discuss it every time, I don't see a problem. But if it's not on the agenda and we start getting into bigger discussions, is that something we could do and not violate the whatever?
No, I mean, my understanding, you made a motion to put on the agenda a discussion on the SNWA water reuse study.
To me, that's the easiest way to handle it.
Is that what the motion was?
That's what the motion is,
Okay,
yeah.
a second?
And
Just,
So-
just requesting a ongoing report from Joe.
But that's not what my motion was to put it on the agenda, not to put as part of the report that he makes. You follow me? It's going to be an agenda item.
Separate agenda
A
item.
separate agenda item.
That we can discuss.
It's not going to
We
be
can take
on,
it.
it's not going to be on the report. That's another agenda item.
Okay,
Who would do the report?
it
It's
doesn't,
not a report, it's just a discussion of a city update and a discussion about the reuse progress. Or, again, might be just a discussion about, so we get more educated if we don't, again, I didn't know there was a consultant. I thought SNWA was doing the whole thing. So there's a lot of questions that come up when certain things are answered, then there's more questions. And so it's a discussion, basically. So, the motion is that we would put it an agenda item and it would be open for discussion and the city would give us feedback on the progress. Okay.
or feedback on information you could discuss, they could
so-
discuss.
So, Mike, I don't want you to,
No,
I want you to understand what the motion is to put it on the agenda.
Well, we're always allowed to question Joe. So when he gives his report,
Well, we've been halted before from
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
off the
no, we are
off
limited
the
on,
subject,
we are
you know.
limited, so we wouldn't.
The
have
reason
too
why I
much.
put on the agenda is there's no question, we could discuss anything about the reuse project. You know, not just an update, we can discuss anything, but you're not supposed to unless it's an agenda item, correct?
Yeah.
okay.
So anyways, I
No,
want to make sure
I-
you understand what you're seconding. It's a separate agenda item.
Okay.
Okay.
So you still second it, or?
Yeah, I'll still second that. I want to know what's going on too.
Okay.
I just thought we could deal with it in his report, and then if we have questions, we question him.
I think Randy's correct that we want to have it separate.
Okay.
It's a safer way. It keeps the open meeting laws cleaner. I
Yeah.
think, So,
I guess we have to have discussion.
well, but that's pretty much we have discussion.
Oh, so I
I
guess,
think, so as long as we understand and we've got the correct that we're asking for a separate, make sure the motion was clear that it was for a separate agenda item. Okay. Yes, we'll vote. But yeah, that's, the third part is the discussion. We got the motion, the second discussion. So anybody else have a discussion-ish? Okay, Howard, you're okay with that?
Yep.
No more discussion? Okay, then we'll put it for a vote. So everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we got aye. So it passes unanimously.
I got another issue, let's see. Again, I asked Josh about, I thought we had discussed at the last meeting, well, again, we wanted to discuss every meeting, the penalty phase and the progress of the golf course turf replacement and the penalties that we're going to get, the city's going to get, what they're going to reuse that for. And Josh kind of hinted that there's really no progress going on that, or it hasn't been implemented yet.
Are you talking about water budget?
I'm talking about the golf course, of course, they're going to have to pay a penalty, whether it's started now yet or not, I don't know.
It goes into effect calendar year 2026?
In July.
So at the end of calendar year 2026?
So
It's by
yeah,
calendar year.
So actually,
Oh, so it's,
January 1st, 2027.
Yeah,
Okay, it's the same time as the
2026.
27. That's what I'm just trying to make, because we're talking January 1st, 2027.
Yeah, so any penalties or any fees associated with exceeding the water use budget won't be assessed until the end of calendar year 2026.
So we can discuss that now, is that proper to discuss this?
For-
'Cause I'm trying to determine if I would support because we almost talked about making that an agenda item also at our last meeting, although it was kind of muddled in the minutes. But I mean, I get a lot of comments about that, a lot of comments about the progress of the turf replacement. And I know we haven't even discussed that because it wasn't on the agenda. And I don't know if it could be part of what we discussed earlier with progress. But that's one thing I wanted to get an update on, because I know there was question about whether starting it in this summer or if we're going to make that date or not. The other thing, again, is the penalties. Is the golf course paying penalty? Again, I don't know if I can discuss this now. Is that something we could discuss to possibly put an agenda item for next time? That's why I'm
It could be an
discussing.
update. I mean, my understanding is the project's gonna start in the fall, and the water budget that council
The
had.
project, you mean the golf course
Yeah,
turf replacement and sprinkler mods?
yes,
It's not going to start this summer.
that's
Because
not
I
my
get
understanding.
questioned by that all the time, and I know that at the last city council meeting, one of the city council meetings where they talked about it, they said they didn't know if they'd be able to make the date. The goal was to do it in June or start in June or July. I don't know if that's been postponed. That's the kind of information as a committee member, I like to get so I could pass it on. So again, can we discuss this now?
I mean, that's some information I can just provide to you, like,
We could do that, that's great.
yeah, I mean, my understanding is it's gonna be, start in the fall. The project's gonna be started in the fall.
So you haven't have a contractor yet, it hasn't been blessed yet, and, RFP'd and all that stuff? Or it's just that's the goal, is to start it in the fall?
Well, it's been going through a process,
Mm-hmm.
for some time.
Yeah,
There's been iterations of how much turf is gonna be removed.
well, that's all settled, correct?
That's all settled, right? So-
Everything's settled, it's just a matter of
But they've had a-
writing up the contract and doing an RFP and the start date, correct?
Yeah, and they've had that same, consultant managing the project since
So that's
that
that's all
process.
part,
Yeah.
that RFP, that's not an RFP, it's already done.
So the design.
Oh, so the
that's
design
what's
that's
been-
holding things up.
No, that's what's been changed over the public process, right? And it's.
Yeah, but that was months ago.
So that.
That
my-
was settled months ago, correct?
My understanding is the construction is gonna begin in the fall of this year.
It is.
Yes.
And
the water.
has the plan come up yet for how they're going to work around the golf course? Have a workaround amongst the construction?
Not to my understanding, no.
Just hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah, it's out of the peak season of this year, out of the summer, so.
Well, that peak season is the fall, so, at the golf course. If they're going to do it during peak season, you sounds like you say it's going to be started in the fall, which is September, October, correct?
Yeah.
That's the goal right now.
Yeah.
And we don't know if that's going to be attained or not.
I mean, that's my understanding.
Okay, so that's during the peak season of golf. I mean, so the golf course is going to have to come up with a plan on how they're going to do that.
Yeah, and
That
they're
hasn't
working
been
through
set-
that.
It hasn't been settled yet, though.
No, they're working through that.
They're
And
working
again-
through it.
Yeah, again, to the water, I misunderstood in the minutes. I thought there was an excessive use charge.
Oh, that's
mentioned.
that's
So
only part of it.
We don't have an excessive use charge in Boulder City. So it may be semantics or terminology, but we have a water budget. But, for a residential customer, any customer, we just have our tiers. Like other agencies have an actual excessive use charge. If you're in the top, 10% of users, you get paid, you have to pay that. So that's what I thought.
Well, that's part of the issue is, my understanding when I went to the meeting where they approved the plan was that the city is going to exceed the SNWA requirements for golf course watering, correct?
We don't know that. you know, that we.
But, it was pretty much said that it's probably going to happen because it was cut from 45 acres to 15. And the consultant even said, because I was at the meeting, that we're probably not going to meet that. And we're probably going to have to increase the golfing fees $1.50 to cover the fine that the city's going to have to fine itself in order, because they're using too much water on at least our golf course and maybe the one across the street. That was my understanding at that meeting.
So that.
So there's going to be a penalty that the city's going to fine itself. They're going to have to put that money in a separate fund, and they're going to have to use that money for water conservation.
So all that is available in the water conservation ordinance. That goes into effect 2026, January 2026. It's assessed.
Not
after the year.
2027. So it goes in effect next year in January.
The way it's assessed at the end of the calendar year, okay?
At
So
the end
any-
of 2026.
Yes.
So-
That is when
Or 20,
any
okay.
extra overusage of the water budget is assessed. It's on an annual basis.
When does it start?
It starts in 2026.
In 1/26.
Yeah.
Okay,
yes.
starts, okay. Again, I'm
okay.
trying to get this information so I can pass it on.
Oh, yeah, no, this is all public information. My
But people
apologies.
don't know it at the golf course.
Okay,
But that's why I'm trying to educate myself.
yeah.
And then the city will start assessing itself a fine if we go over, correct?
All the golf courses
All
will
of them.
be on a water budget. in
Except we're
2026.
unique because we are our own
We
water
will-
entity.
We are going to be on the same water budget. Every golf course is on, the 3 golf courses are on the same water budget.
But we fine ourselves. All the other golf courses in the valley pay the fine to SNWA, correct?
The provider, you know, it could be Henderson, it could be North Las Vegas.
But they
it
pay
could be Las Vegas
SNWA the
Valley.
fine.
No, they could be, no, it's the utility provider. You know, it could be Henderson, it could be North Las Vegas, it could be Las Vegas Valley Water District.
So they're in the
SNWA.
same boat we are, where they're going to fine themselves, and then they're going to find a conservation project to pay, to use that money?
They don't have any golf courses that are over the water budget, is my understanding. They have private courses that will be, and, you know, those funds are used for water conservation activities, so that's
So
enforcement.
as far as you know, no city entity is going to be, so we're still unique in that. We're going to probably go over our water budget.
I'm sorry, we're getting to the point where we're way off.
Well, that's why,
Way off
I would
agenda.
like to have an update every meeting on this whole
We
subject.
can give you an update on it, if that's,
And that's why I'd like to make an agenda item so that it's clear and we could discuss it.
Well, I think one thing could be is a water budget, so that's one they want, and then you can help us too, and you guys put the agendas together, but whether it's water budget, because, you know, somebody could say the golf course isn't under our purview, but it's a matter of understanding the water allocations.
Well,
And so-
it's the progress of, well, again, we're talking, our next meeting is July, and we're going to have some progress different than we know now about the turf reduction. So I would like to have an agenda item about the progress of that, and an agenda item explaining anything that changes about, and again, open for discussion like we're having now, about how this whole process works, where the city finds itself, and when they start finding themselves, and again, I'm finding out information I didn't know. You say it's going to start in 21-26.
yeah.
So I would like to have an agenda item that discusses the turf reduction, that discusses the possible changes at the golf course because of it, and the possible finding of the city for penalizing themselves for overuse of water, which we won't really know until the turf reduction is completed. And then what we're going to spend that money on, because that's something I think the Utility Commission should have an input on. How we're going to, if we get $50,000, $100,000 a year as a fine to ourselves, we have to find some way of conserving water out there in Boulder City. We have to come up with a method, and it could be more money for turf reduction. It could be all kinds of different things, of spending
Okay,
something,
Randy,
wastewater.
I'm sorry,
So
but we're
that's
way-
why I wanted to make another motion.
If we can get it on there, yes, we can
That's-
discuss it in more
Again,
detail.
I'm trying to show you
I-
guys
I-
how
I-
much information that one motion can give us and hope that you can provide us that information. So I'd like to make a motion that we discuss those things. We have an ongoing agenda item that addresses these items until they're resolved. So we'll discuss the turf reduction, which all has to do with water usage and over water usage. We'll discuss the fines that we're going to do ourselves in because of overuse of water and the reuse of, and the how we're going to utilize those fines. So those three things. Can I make a motion that we put that on the agenda, at least next agenda? Because I know these issues will not be solved for another couple years, so it's going to be probably an ongoing issue. And I'd like to see it on every agenda so we could discuss it. So I'll make that motion. Did you get all those three things?
I believe so, yeah. Golf
Okay.
course turf reduction project update, fines associated, and how we would
And not only
utilize
turf
those
reduction,
funds.
but the progress of the golf course and mitigating the interference because of the tearing up the golf course. In other words, how is the golf course going to mitigate that in playtime?
So golf course turf reduction project and operations update?
And operations during the,
Before you do a motion, the only thing I see on this is we've got, I don't have any problem with what you've said, and I don't have any problem putting it on the agenda, but we do have to look at time and figure out if that's doable in one meeting or not.
well, I think if it's on the agenda, we could discuss it and we could limit the time. I mean, that's up to us, how
Well,
much.
there's two things. First off, if it is gonna take time, then can we not have a meeting behind us? So we can have a longer meeting if we needed it, so we would have more than 3 hours, if we think it's gonna go over.
Well, we
So the
could put it
committee
on the
members-
end of the agenda so that we kind of know that how much time we have to do it, let's put it that way. And I have no issues putting on the end of the agenda, and then,
Well,
I didn't want to really discuss this, I just want to get it on the agenda.
No, I
That's fine.
understand. It's just, and I don't, like I said, I'm just, in the past, we've said this is too much for an agenda, so I'm just seeing that we've got, how many agenda items do we have for July now?
So I've got, choosing a committee member to be on the RFP selection committee or party, inputs into RFP, sets 2, SNWA water reuse study update 3, status update on CIP 4, water and power consumption 5, and this motion, and then minutes and put future agenda items, that'd be 7.
So I'll include in my motion that we make it the last agenda item, and then if we have time to make a lengthy discussion, we do. If we just have just a quick update, then it should take 10 minutes. So that's part of my motion also.
I said I have no problem, I just want to
Well,
clarify.
I mean, we're going to vote on it, so if you don't like it, that's up to you if you want to vote no or, I won't, I mean, it's just my thoughts, and if you guys don't agree with it, that's fine.
Does all this fit into the scope of what the committee's supposed to be doing right here?
If we're working with, I believe, if we're working with the water budget and stuff like that, as Randy has pointed out, yes, it does.
It's all due to
It's-
water.
Yeah, because we have different, it's related in different, it has different aspects to how much water we're using, who's paying for what. So again, I had some thoughts on it myself, but we probably better not discuss it, because now we're discussing it. I think sometimes a little bit of information can be done, but once we start discussing it, then we're off the agenda. But I see that, I believe it has relevance. So,
There's my motion.
I second it then.
okay. Okay, any discussion? I think we did pretty well. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. So it passes unanimously.
Well, thank you for that. I didn't expect that.
That's the reason I was asking the question, so we could, I think it's easier when we know all the facts, when we
Yeah.
go with the motion instead of, then we have to put it down because somebody's confused on something. Okay, so was that, anything else, Randy?
No, those are my two big items.
So, anything else?
Thank you for supporting me on that committee, by the way, and city.
Okay, any questions, Howard?
No, I'm good.
Okay, then we will close out item number 6 and go to the public comment. And at this time, you have 3 minutes if you would like to discuss something that might be off the agenda but is related to the utilities. So we'll give about a minute to make sure people catch it. Again, the phone number is 702-589-9629. I think I can ask it during the comment period. So these packets, are these for us to take home, or are these things for these, we have a little,
Yeah, that's stuff you guys asked for.
and we can take with us? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Geez, I didn't even look at it.
Okay, one more time, the number is 702-589-9629. And again, there was no comment written or called in. Okay. Okay, so hearing no comments, hearing nothing, then we will close the meeting at, we will adjourn at 3:25. Thank you, everybody, for your support and time.
We did good, huh? 325.
Yeah, that's good. Better.
You got
Thanks for participating.